Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Friday morning Pulp Literature Press live reading series. With us today, we have Richard O'Brien, Kerry Craven, and Mitchell Toews. And we'll have readings from each of these fine authors. If you have any questions, put them up in the YouTube chat, and we will pass them on to the authors, and hopefully they will answer them for you. So sit back, grab your favorite cup of coffee, and enjoy a wonderful set of readings this morning. So first up, we have Richard J O'Brien. He's an author from Jersey. He was in issue 19, and he wrote an amazing science fiction story in that issue, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about it.
Thank you. How's everybody? So my story in that issue was the Slade transmutation. And in it, a seemingly normal guy wakes up one day with a titanium alloy toe, and then it seems to spread, and ultimately he garners the attention of the U.S. government, who whisks him away to a secret facility to study him. So I'm going to read a portion toward the ends after he's there for a while. And his wife, I should say, incidentally, has been allowed to visit him, but with no great regularity. And they keep playing a particular song on a loop 24/7. Saga was a band, actually, in the 80s, I guess, and it was on the loose. Anyway, here's the portion. Sleep was no longer an issue. I didn't need it. After hearing that Saga song for the 3,000th time since they took me prisoner, I decided I had had enough. I still didn't know if I was bulletproof or grenade-proof for that matter, but I decided I wanted out. The midnight to 8 man arrived the way he always did. He never said a word to me. Hey, I said, what do you get when you cross an omelet with a kangaroo? Nothing. He was one icy bastard. Okay, I switched gears now. A rabbi, a priest, a circus clown, and an accountant walk into a strip bar. The dancer on stage is this gal wearing a Wookiee mask. So the priest says, wait, you do know what a Wookiee is, right? The Iceman kept on staring straight ahead. He was dressed like the other guards. Black khakis, a ridiculous beret, a bulletproof vest, and combat boots. He wore a semi-automatic pistol in a holster on his waist, along with what were either smoke bombs or grenades. I just had to find out. Wouldn't you know it, they turned out to be grenades. After the first grenade went off, the midnight to 8 man was already dead. I detonated the second grenade as well, and I didn't feel a thing, not even the concussive waves that took the door off its hinges. After that, it was like a security guard reunion, at least until I killed them all. Once I took out the security force, all the egghead doctors went running off into the night. The strange thing is I never found where they were playing Sagas on the loose, and believe me, after hearing it a few thousand times, I wanted nothing more than to find the room where the music player was located and smash it to bits. Robbed of such vengeance, I left the facility, which turned out to be some forgotten brick building with no windows on the ass end of Fort Dix, New Jersey. It was already dark out by the time I got home. Katie was there, but she wasn't alone. There were 6 mercenary-looking types in those familiar black uniforms, along with some guys in suits. Leave now, I said, and I will forget this whole thing. Take her, one of the suits said. The goon closest to Katie unholstered his pistol and held it to my wife's head. So I killed the others just to level the playing field. I'll kill her, the uniformed goon said. I swear to God. Katie was wearing white gloves. It was warm out, so the gloves didn't make any sense at all. Just walk away, I told the government goon. The moment I spoke, Katie reached up, took hold of the pistol's barrel, and bent it. The goon attempted to pull the trigger, but the pistol no longer worked. In an instant, he produced a knife from the back of his belt. Katie jabbed her gloved right hand into the guy's left eye. When she pulled her hand away, the glove remained inside the gaping wound she had created in the guy's face. The goon dropped to his knees and slumped over on his back. Katie held up her ungloved hand. It looked like mine, titanium alloy with a satin finish. She took off the other glove to show me the three metallic fingers on that hand. Next, she kicked off her right shoe. Her foot was no longer human. Suddenly, a thin sliver of alloy showed on her left cheek and spread down her neck. My wife never looked more beautiful.
Thank you. That's a twist. Usually people read from the beginning. I was not expecting to get to that climactic scene in this reading, but it does make you want to go back and read the beginning of the story. So well done on that.
Nice.
And I love the ending of that story.
Thank you.
So what was your inspiration for it?
You know, I've always had problems with alarm clocks. Well, of course, you wouldn't know until I tell you. But in the past, I guess because I bought cheap ones as a younger guy, I had a thing about maybe turning off, being too hard turning them off, and like, a button would crack or the plastic front, would get damaged because I was a little bit irate about alarm clocks. So it started with that. And then I read an article years ago about a baseball alarm clock that you could pick up and throw across your room to turn it off. And I never invested in one of those, but I thought that was a great idea. So I just had this idea. I kept seeing this guy waking up with this, his finger or toe in the beginning, actually, of the story just turns into almost like this robotic feature. And there's no explanation as to why. It's just happening to him, which is part of the reason why he's taken captive and all that stuff.
That's wonderful. And I've got to say, now I've got that song going through my head. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Yeah.
If,
That was one of the ones we were plagued with on MTV way, way back when. And it just, every time I turned on the television as a young guy, it was on. And the first 10 times I kind of liked it. I thought, oh, this isn't bad. But then, like the character Slade in my story, I just, after the thousandth time, I was like, oh, no. But then when you go back and look at it, the actual video of that song, it's that 80s ridiculousness. I think the guy is even wearing like these pants that are like, what are they called? Like, not leotard pants, and I think they might even have like the print of the Japanese flag all over them.
yeah.
I try to block it out, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It was the era of big hair and grandiose guitar licks.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they weren't talented at all, but it's just like any good thing. If it's too much, it's too much. So.
Indeed. So you've written 5 novels, and what are you working on now?
Right now, I'm finishing up a novel. It's about a guy who leaves his family to chase the woman of his dreams, who may be a figment of his imagination, because he finds out indirectly that he actually has brain cancer. So, there's an incident and he ends up getting this examination, and this brain cancer is revealed. So his whole life turns upside down. And then he starts to doubt that he's even alive at all, and it may be his last moments of a life that he lost when he was a child. So there's a couple of different lives going on at once for this character.
So that seems to be a theme for you. Is, you're writing about characters who are having things happen to their bodies. And does that turn up in any of your other books?
I think so. Although the most recent one, The Accidental Hero of the City of Brotherly Love, the narrator, nothing happens to him, but the other significant character in the book, something definitely happens to his body. So, and he is the story of the new novel that's out. The Accidental Hero of the City of Brotherly Love. A guy, all he wants to do is be a writer, and he'll support himself any way that he can. But he accidentally kills a would-be terrorist, so then they turn him into a hero in Philadelphia, and he wants no parts of it. In the meantime, the dead guy gets to come back, because he kind of strikes a deal in the afterlife. But that's about all I'm going to give away right now on that one. So,
Oh, cool. And I have a question from Jessica Fabricius. She's asking, is the Aleph Cafe stories still slated for 2020?
oh, they are. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks. I think probably by what is this, April? It may be more like June. I think it was going to be May, but I'm just going to say June.
Okay,
So,
great. And
yeah.
where can our listeners get a hold of those?
They are available on my books, actually. Would be Amazon, of course, online, Barnes and Noble. They may be in some of the other places like Pals if you're not into the whole Amazon thing. Although electronic versions, like the latest one, The Accidental Hero of the City of Brotherly Love, Barnes has a paperback, but no electronic version yet. But Amazon has Kindle and paperback. And then, of course, the Aleph Cafe. That's the collection will be out, and in the same thing, online stores mostly.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful reading, Richard. And I'm going to bring our next guest onto the stage. So stick
Thank you
around,
very much. Will
and we'll
do.
bring you back at the end.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we have Kerry Craven. She's an English and creative writing teacher. She's won several contests, the Scugog nonfiction contest, but the reason we have her is because she was the first runner-up for the Raven contest it was the, 2018, yes. 2017 contest. She was published in 2018. So her story, Meggie, is in issue 18, spring 2018. So Carrie, why don't you tell us a little bit about a little bit about the story and give us a little taste of it.
So in this story, Maggie is an impoverished girl. She's trapped in a cottage taking care of her ailing mother, and her mother's illness has made her quite abusive. So one night, a woman appears with a magical satchel that can grant any wishes. So I'm just going to read you the end of this story. What would you say, girl, she asks, if I told you I could give you the one thing that would make you happy? What would you say to that? I force a tiny smile, return my gaze to the fire. That, I said, is an impossible thing. Aye, she said. Quite a tricky thing, that. I'll be thinking it's freedom you're wanting. I see you as a happy, carefree creature, walking out that door and never coming back. I give a nod and regret it almost instantly. I can never be happy if I had to leave Mother, I say. That old thing. The woman chuckles again, wedges the pipe sharply between her teeth. That creature tain't a bit your mother. Your mother's sleeping like a baby somewhere inside there. Aye, but that thing's nothing but a bloated old haggis. Please, I asked, can't you help her? Isn't there any way you can make her be her again? Oh, Corno, your mother is right where she needs to be right now. She's done, you stop. There's not for her here, by God. She's safe and warm right where she is. You, though, young lady. She taps the chair with her pipe. You're the one I came to help. Quite the puzzle, to be sure. I wait for her to continue, but she merely pinches her eye into little slits, examining me. I cough and turn to the fire. Well, I say, you'll be needing a place to sleep. The barn's clean, cleaner than here, and Mother wakes through the night. The woman springs from her chair. The barn will do nicely, thank you kindly. She walks to the door, turns to take one last look through the cottage. Yarp, quite the puzzle indeed. Grinning broadly, she slips open the neck of the bag just a bit and whispers into it. I think I hear the bag whisper back. A gust of wind blows in it as she opens the door and leaves. I feel the whispers brushing against my face through my hair. Tiny whispers like tiny kisses. The door slams shut behind her. Nothing left now but Mother and me. Mother doesn't wake. Not once. I used to sleep next to her in the bed, but lately I've been sleeping curled up by the fire. The gray embers settle down and cool, but it's not long before I begin to feel the sun through the window and wake to hear the door crash open. The young woman bangs through, her face full of mischief. I crack one eye, but I'm too sleepy, too warm. I could sleep all day. But then I remember. Mother. She didn't wake, not once. The young woman smiles as I dart up on all fours, my back arched. I, Maggie girl, quite the problem you pose to me. So what do you think of the solution? Meow, I say, wrinkling my nose. I try again. I stretch one tiny velvet paw in front of me, mottled orange and black. There's a speck of ash. I lick it off, then stick out my tongue at the taste. Spinning around, I catch sight of an orange tail, striped and fluffy and bright. The woman laughs again, picks me up by the scruff of my neck, and brings me close to her nose. I'm barely as big as her hand. I have a whole new life ahead of me. So now, dear creature, I'll give you a choice. The first real choice you've ever had. But first, it's time to deal with your poor dear mother. She places me on top of mother's legs. I walk gently up to her chest, her breath so shallow. There, girl, you know what to do. It's what you poor dear critters are made for. I pad up to mother's mouth, so gently. Her eyes flutter open. I can smell the number of breaths she has, and I know there are not any left. Her eyes, though, so blue, so clouded, they know me. I lean my tiny forehead against her base. With the last of her strength, she gently pushes back with her own soft face. Reaching my mouth to hers, I suck out the final words, sweet words that only a mother could know. I will take her with me when I go. I turn to the young woman, swish my tail, push my back against her warm hand. I know, girl, well done. That's the way. Now, here's your choice. She holds up the bag, a bag full of everything, a bag full of imagination. Do you come with me? Do you see the world safe and protected? I give an indignant sneeze. I thought not. Or you can forge out in the world alone, face the risks, take your chances. You might find happiness, or you might not. But you'll do it alone with naught to tie you down. I pound to the ground, preening against the splintered wood door. Meow, I tell her, my eyes alert. Somewhere in the field, I smell a mouse. The hunt is on. The young woman replies, I thought that's what you'd say. She pulls the latch and sunlight streams into the room. As she throws her satchel over her shoulder, I hear tiny mews. Ah, she tells the bag, behave in there, all of you. We stride through the cabin door together, but I quickly dash ahead into a great and open world.
That was wonderful. I wasn't sure if you'd be able to get the whole thing in, but you did, and I'm so glad. It it's such an interesting twist on a fairy tale, you know, where most fairy tales we have people transformed into animals and trying to get back to being human again, and this time we have someone transformed into an animal and it's a chance at a new life. So what was your inspiration for this?
Well, I was actually on a trip with a writing group that I'm part of called Inkslingers, and we were in Scotland. And I was doing a writing exercise on a day. There's someone bagpiping off in the distance. And it just reminded me of a time in my childhood when my grandmother always used to say her purse was magic. And if you reached inside, there was always a chocolate bar inside. So I just kind of was thinking about what would I do if I had a bag that could just give you anything you ever wanted.
Oh, neat. Yeah, that's it's the bag of holding combined with the room of requirement. And so, what are you working on right now?
Well, I'm just polishing up a middle grade novel that I'm writing. It's about a young girl and her kind of kick-ass mother who inherit this magical and fairly petulant house that's being attacked by the forces of darkness. So I'm just polishing that one up so I can seek a publisher. And I'm currently in the middle of working on a teen novel called The Nuclear Holocaust Club, in which a group of teens kind of fight against the world that's crumbling around them.
Oh, neat. I've got a question here from the audience, which says, "It's a great reading. The voices were a great touch. Curious if the current situation is influencing your work at all."
Well, the one I'm working on right now, absolutely, because uh, I think writing in a post-pandemic world is going to completely change the way teenagers see relationships and the way they relate to adults and the way they relate to the world. So I think I'm going to actually have to put a pause on it and rework some of the things that I've done because it is a book about the disasters and the crisis that we are facing in humanity.
Oh, yeah, that is, yeah. you might have to rework quite a bit of it, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. On the other hand, I'm sure this is going to provide great fodder for writers everywhere. Just it's something so new. When we think about apocalypse, we think about fire and explosions and war. We don't think about quietly sitting in our homes and watching the world shut down.
It's been a
So
very comfortable apocalypse
it
as
is.
things go.
I would choose this apocalypse over any other kind that has ever been imagined, I think. I'm not even sure apocalypse is the right term, but it does sometimes feel like it when you see, the empty streets and things like that. But well, thank you for that wonderful reading and those terrific voices. So I am going to bring our next writer on stage, and we've just got his video back just in the nick of time. So Mitchell Toews lives and writes in Manitoba, and he's been in a number of anthologies. We published him first in issue 20 of Pulp Literature, in a very Canadian story, which he's going to give us a bit
Hi, I
of.
see the red light has come on and I'm live. I'm afraid my audio is out. I'm going to read a story called Away Game. It's an abbreviation of the story that appeared in Pulp Literature a while back. And it's a story that came about when I was spending a lot of time about 3 years ago thinking about old relatives and old friends and things like that. So here's Away Game. My great-great-grandfather came to visit us at our home by the lake. This was unexpected because he died in 1908. Inflected with a Mennonite brogue, he spoke with short, demanding sentences and syntax reminiscent of a buggy ride over frozen stubble. Clear eyes stared you down into the blackened remnants of a failed Fife wheat crop. Pardon me. That's some beard you have there, I said after we got settled down by the water. Call me Opa, he said, sensing my unease. Why don't you have a beard? Too itchy, I replied. He stared at the lake. Why are you living here? What's wrong with town? We like it here, Opa. How is it, where you are? Well, good. It gets beastly hot and smells like sewer gas, but the women sure are sporty. Then he took a long sip of his drink, eyes merry over the rim of the glass, while he regarded me. Janice, standing behind my chair, misted me with lemonade as she burst out laughing. That John Candy guy told me to say that if you asked, he said. We're friends. He is just terrible funny.
And Mitch seems to have been frozen. He's been having connectivity problems here. So while we wait for him to come back, bring Richard and Kerry back on screen.
Yeah.
So for Richard, there's another comment. Great reading. I love that story. And Alana Kay said she loved that story to Kerry. So you're getting a lot of fan love out there. And Richard, you commented in the comments here that you're convinced that one of your kittens may be victim of a spell.
It may be, yeah, actually. Evidence is mounting.
You are both teachers, one at the high school level, one at the university level, and you're both writing teachers. So why don't we use this time to pick your brains and tell us some of the things advice you would give to writers or to new writers and people wanting to get their work out there?
I would say don't, and it's kind of counterproductive, but I would say don't be in a rush to seek publication right away. I think it's we all know how tough it is, but I think it's important that somebody feels comfortable in their skin as a writer. But one of the things that I came across, and a few different people said it, John Gardner, the guy who wrote Beowulf, Toni Morrison said something of the same thing about if there's a book out there that you want to read but it hasn't been written yet, then you should write it. So that would be my advice. Take your time and write the things that you would want to read. Don't worry about audience, don't worry about trends and all that stuff.
That's good advice. And Kerry, you've got a slightly younger crowd. What do you say to them?
Well, with me, it's really getting them to have the confidence to write because it's going to take them a lot of practice before they get the skills, but they have to get pen to paper. So a lot of the times I just remind them that each of them has a unique, distinct voice in this world and that they deserve to be heard. One of the things I really find helps is that I tell them to try just describing things using the five senses. Don't just talk about what you see. Think about an experience that you've had and what were some of the sounds you heard? What were some of the smells you found? Because I find that when students are writing about themselves and things they've experienced, that's a really deep and enriching way to get them writing. Because really it is about the pen to paper, and they have to have the practice and they have to build the skills. So that's the main thing I kind of focus on.
That's a good point because I mean writing is something that it doesn't just come naturally. People think you can just, we can all speak, so why can't we just put a pen to paper and write? But it isn't a natural thing, and it is something that you have to practice, just like you have to practice a musical instrument or a sport or anything like that. You wouldn't pick up an oboe and go out and play a virtuoso concert without having put in a lot of hours of practice.
Well, and I always tell them you might be a published writer someday, or you might just be writing sad emo poetry to yourself. Both are fine. Both are valuable in this world.
That's true. They very much are. And I've already asked you what you're working on at the moment, but is there anything now that we may have more time on our hands if things don't, once classes are over? You guys are both teaching, so you're still busy, but is there any dream project that you have? Anything you want to eventually write but haven't found the time?
There is actually, and I have notes on it. There was that case, that young gentleman from Alabama who went to that island. Is it in the Indian Ocean or Pacific? I forget. And he was actually trying to convert people who are a protected tribe who had very little contact with, I guess, the modern world. But ultimately, he ended up losing his life. And I have this idea that I want to write, not his story, but a story like it. And then, so that's one of them. But I wouldn't even know how to start it yet. I just have a bunch of notes, and I have some openings that none of which I'm happy with, of course. So yeah, that's definitely one of the ones that I want to, and I see it like a big sprawling thing. Most of my books tend to be not short, but they're not, like, I don't know, like Middlemarch long or anything like that. So, but I do. That's my dream, is to write one of those big sprawling 1,000-pagers, I guess.
That's your future magnum opus.
Right.
What about you, Kerry?
Oh, I am definitely a pantser, not a plotter. So I tend to do a lot of writing that's in the moment. I always have about 5 projects percolating in my brain, but it really is just about what's inspiring me in my experiences today. So right now, I'm honestly just writing every night about this experience of living in a pandemic. I've been keeping a record of my dreams, which I think will be valuable fodder for stories in the future, for sure.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
And
the crazy trend for dreams.
Hello. I'm sensing vibes that I am to read again, so I'm going to start over. So Opa hummed and smacked his lips, looking again at the far shore. He seemed restless. Got any smokes? There's no smoking up there, he said, jabbing a crooked thumb skyward. I miss tobacco a bit. Janice began walking towards the cabin. I'll get you one, she said over her shoulder. We were quiet. Opa stared at me the whole time. I could hear him talking to himself, but his lips weren't moving. I missed you. Did you know that? Opa said, pale blue eyes drilling at me. But Opa, we never met. I mean, you died before I was born. Yeah, I know. That made it worse, he said, rocking forward in his chair. He did seem lonely, but it was hard to judge. I felt headachy and my chest hurt. It's not really lonely, said the voice in my head, Opa's voice. More like a longing, desire for the familiar, a fierce craving for people and things you loved well. I had a flood of old memories, long buried, that conjured themselves in flickering, smeared images like when the strip of film on the school projector broke. I stared at my hand, now inexplicably holding my favorite hammer, the one with the wood handle and the shapely cleft bell of delicately patinaed steel. Thousands of tiny dents on the round face gave evidence of nails struck firmly, one at a time. Each deft strike coaxed out a fleeting pepper-flake satisfaction as the nail plunged in, not splitting the wood grain nor bending from an inaccurate blow. I grasped what Opa's voice was telling me. "Naya," he said as he accepted a light from Janice and inhaled with sudden urgency, the tip of the cigarette crackling. He nodded a grave thank you to Janice before turning back to me. "Do you have skates?" Puzzled, I glanced at the dragonflies darting above us. When I looked back, Janice was gone, and Opa was surrounded by a team of hockey players. They had emerged from the cattails. My dad, W.P. Kinsella, John Candy, and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law were there with my uncles Ken and Ernie. "We got a game at 2, Opa said, pulling on a ragged hockey glove. The palm leather, already thin as doeskin, was cut out with painstaking care so he could grip the stick with his bare hand. The air took on a coolness. It smelled like our old hockey rink, wet leather and exhaust fumes from the Massey tractor that flooded the ice. I heard the boom of a puck hitting the boards. "John Candy, he's our goalie, so you can play out," Opa said. He handed me an old CCM stick and a roll of black tape. "Okay, I guess I'm still not too old to play out." And that's the end. If you are indeed still there.
I think we've still got some audience. I'm not sure Mitch can hear us, but I'm glad we finally got him back and got to hear the end of that story. And Jessica Fabricius said, "Like me a cheeky grandpa." So thank you, everybody. These were great readings, technical issues notwithstanding, and well, we got to go for 5 minutes longer. And we got some extra questions in of our teachers. I will sign off and remind everybody that we are on every Friday morning at 10 a.m. And if you'd like to support these readings and keep these going, you can support us on our Patreon. Pulp Literature is on Patreon. I'll put that link up, and we'll have links to all the other authors in the rest of the comments down there at the bottom. And we also want to let you know that we have podcasts coming up. We're not sure when, but we will be doing podcasts as well, so you can listen on your drive. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week.